Oh God.
So we are live. All right. We are good to go. Exciting.
Yeah.
So Monticello live, December 11th, 2020. We
Yeah.
are having some technical issues. Facebook doesn't like me tonight. So we're gonna apparently I can't use the public page either. I've been banned from the public page as well.
Wow.
I was naughty. So, like a buddy of mine was texting me earlier, was like, "Hey, thanks for letting me know which words we can't use on Facebook."
Yeah, it's good to know.
It's like it wasn't even like I told a dude to stop being a bitch. That's what I got banned for. Said stop being a bitch. I don't even know the guy. Wasn't even worth it. How stupid was that? Right? I mean, like,
yeah.
how dumb was that? That that I got banned for basically somebody I don't even know. So go figure. Story of my life. So anyway, how was your week?
It was good. How was yours?
Yeah, it's been busy. It was busy. Exciting.
Good.
A lot of business and work stuff going on.
Good.
It was funny. I made a joke earlier on Twitter. We're working on getting the IT stuff set up for the business, which I'm not going to talk about tonight. But so I've actually called them several times, and it's a well-known firm locally here in town and actually around Florida. And they work with some people who I know, some other friends and whatnot. And so instead of me trying to price out all the individual, the workstations and the servers and the phones and yada, 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 I'm trying to one source it all. And so I had called back again, I think it was Tuesday, to schedule a presentation call. And then they called me this morning and they were like, "Hey, we lost all your information in our system."
What?
I was like, "Aren't you asking me to hire you for IT services, which would include storing my data on your system?" Fortunately, the guy laughed about it. Like he saw the humor. He wasn't. He laughed. He's like, "Yeah, I get it." So yeah, that was funny. But the other thing I love about this time of year is people who just take the last 2.5 months of the year off.
Oh yeah.
It's like basically the year's over, and so we're just not going to work. We're not going to, do anything literally. So excited. So it's going to be a good show this week. Put in a lot of time. I've gotten a couple comments from people. No, you did not miss the email this week. I did not send one out for various reasons. One, because mainly what I wrote sucked. And Jessica was too nice to tell me that it sucked. Even though she knew
I said
if
you're not proud of it, it's not something we need to put out there.
It sucked. It wasn't good. I didn't like what I had, and it didn't feel like it was worthy of sharing with the fine people at home. I'm all about delivering value.
Yeah.
Well, we got to deliver value,
Yeah.
So we're saving it for next week, and I think actually for the folks at home or big get, next week is going to be interesting. I think I know what you're drinking.
I'm actually drinking hard kombucha. It's really gross.
I'm sorry, what?
It's hard kombucha. So it's kombucha that's been fermented longer so that it has alcohol in it.
That's a thing?
Yeah.
I'm kind of rethinking this whole, should I have had Jessica on the show?
It was, I purchased it on a whim. It was a whim.
Yeah, that would explain it. That would actually explain it quite a bit. So I'm sticking, actually, although I have a special one for later, which I'll explain, but this is just my standard whiskey ginger with This is with Jim Beam Rye, which is actually
Okay, good. Yeah.
So look, we got to get to the news of the day,
Mm-hmm.
even though we're not a news program. Thank God for that. So I am as shocked as you are that the Supreme Court basically said, no, nice try. Literally, I don't know a serious human being on planet Earth who expected otherwise.
Right.
So I guess a couple things. One is, and I'm deciding how much of this I want to talk about live on air, which is a fun process. But so where do you think Trump world goes from here? Because they're not just going to go, cool, yeah, you're right, Joe won, we're done.
I don't know where they're going to go. I mean, no one on that list any longer has any credibility whatsoever. I mean, I know it was this loyalty test, but their names are there and you can just vote them out. But I don't know where they go. Like, what's their next platform with? I don't know.
Yeah, I've been getting asked this quite a bit. Partially because, as I admitted publicly, there's multiple personal friends of mine on that list, like people I literally know and hang out with and have known for a long time. And then probably another dozen or so people I've worked with professionally. Either I managed emails for or wrote speeches for or something along those lines. And I'm not going to name names. So people who've been asking me to name names, it's actually beside the point. And there were a few names. I called out somebody yesterday who wasn't very happy with me for calling him out. I will say that.
Yeah.
Because I was somebody who I was very disappointed in. Somebody who I consider to be part of the smart wing, the grown-up wing, which he took exception to. But this idea that you're going to sign on to something that is so blatantly, I keep saying unconstitutional. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not.
It's just frivolous.
Frivolous and a blatant power grab.
Yeah.
Like, they literally were saying one state has the legal right to disenfranchise voters of another state.
Yeah.
And how that, and most of this has been said by other people much smarter than me. So I don't know that I feel like going way deep in this road. But I guess part of it is I'm so lost. I don't know if you can tell, just trying to get through all this in my head. I'm so lost by the rampant stupidity of this.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is, everybody that I could think of on that list, whose districts I could look at and say, I know that district. And that's a lot of them, because I've worked in a lot of them, quite honestly. They're all perfectly safe districts. Like, there's not a single one of them.
Right.
Who from Michael Waltz to Greg Pence in Indiana to Bob Latta in Ohio, all three of which I worked for, by the way. I could name a whole long list. Well, they're all safe.
Yeah.
Like, those are all gerrymandered red districts, including my own congressman, Neil Dunn, who I did not vote for re-election for that specific reason, because he was too much of a Trumper. Even though I have friends who actually work on his staff, like personal friends and former colleagues who are senior staffers for him.
Yeah.
And I think the reality is that there's such a fear in the Republican Party right now of Trumpism. And I think you're seeing it on Parler, and you're seeing it on all these, all these alternate right-wing social media sites. There's this real anger and vitriol that I think these people are afraid of. And a politician wouldn't be a politician if he or she wasn't afraid of being reelected.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the whole point. But the long-term effects of this are, like, I have way too many friends of mine who are lawyers.
Mhm.
I just realized who I was talking to. But literally, I've had text exchanges with about a dozen of them who are all like, the precedent that you just set, now no election is safe because anybody can sue to overturn the results of any election anytime they want.
Mhm.
There's no way around that.
Yeah.
And they're not wrong. So I guess I don't know where we go from here, because I feel like the question I get all the time from people is essentially, what's the long-term future? What is this going to look like? What are we doing? Like, what are we, and I don't really have a great answer for those people. I really don't. Like, I don't know what the long-term future is because I don't know where those people are going.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if after 6 months or a year of Joe Biden, things can kind of calm down. Like once they realize socialists aren't coming, to take over the country and things like that. Maybe some of it'll tamp itself down. I don't know.
Yeah, but don't you think though that the problem you run into now is everybody's got their own echo chamber, and nobody is exposed to any kind of voices of reason, or I don't know, like earlier tonight, my wife and I were eating dinner and we were watching BBC News.
Yeah.
Trump people don't watch BBC News.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that makes me more informed than anybody else, but it's certainly outside of the echo chamber.
Yes.
And I think that's the biggest issue is if you never leave that echo chamber and you never hear any kind of dissenting view or opposing thought or anything along those lines, then where's the growth? Where's the change? I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense. And there are only becoming more and more outlets that you can go to justify your cause or, make you feel validated. So I don't know that the problem's going away. I don't know what the solution is or how to make everyone see reason.
Yeah, because the response you always get is, it's your view, those are your facts. Like my most hated saying on planet Earth is my truth, your truth.
Mm-hmm.
Like I lose my shit when people say stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because there is absolute truth. That's an actual thing.
Yeah.
And I know nobody reads philosophy anymore, but
yeah.
Absolute truth is an actual thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess that's where I don't know where the long-term answer to this is, except to realize now that every single election is going to be in court.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll take thoughts on this from the audience, but I don't know that really anybody has any penetrating insight or long-term view or any other thoughts. I think it just is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I was grabbing my phone. So let's, I think this is our most excited and requested feature of the show, is we are going to do our live readings.
Okay, let me pull these up.
Which I know people like I actually do. I'm not even joking. I actually get comments on this.
Really?
Yeah, which is pretty funny.
Okay.
So we got to dig a couple things up, and then I need to change my costume. So
oh no, not again.
1 second.
I'm so scared. This is a costume change. Oh God. What is happening? Oh God.
This is my wife's suggestion, by the way.
I like it. Yeah, it's a really nice addition. It pulls pulls it together. Yeah.
I just felt like, and then I couldn't. I don't know if the folks at home. I had to tie it. I have to do it backwards because I'm not very smart here. I'm really not very smart, am I?
Where did you go?
I had to make sure I tied it along, correctly.
Mm-hmm.
We just lost both of our viewers.
I know, all two.
All right, hold on. So I mean, I looked a little while ago. I didn't see anything that like I was really excited about. Like I thought, okay, I was kind of hoping that we would get some post Supreme Court.
Oh
tweets.
yeah, some good ones. Those will come. Don't worry.
So I'm going to start because this was my favorite one. So I feel like I'm stealing your thunder, but
No.
okay. If the Supreme Court shows great wisdom and courage, the American people will win perhaps the most important case in history, and our electoral process will be respected again.
My favorite from today was, I just want to stop the world from killing itself.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't know. Like, what is it in reference to? I don't know. And it was just I don't know. It's like one of his few tweets that doesn't have a disclaimer on it, though.
Yeah. So here's the other one. This was the oopsie tweet. I love this one. Now that the Biden administration will be a scandal-plagued mess for years to come, it is much easier for the Supreme Court of the United States to follow the Constitution and do what everybody knows has to be done. They must show great courage and wisdom. Save the USA.
Oh, man. Let's see.
I mean, he admits he says the Biden administration. Like, he let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah, he knows.
Good job, dude.
Yeah. No presidential candidate ever came even close to losing an election who won Iowa, Florida, and Ohio. I won all
that was a good one.
by a lot.
Yeah, that was a good one. Why didn't the fake news media, the FBI, and the DOJ report the Biden matter before the election? Oh, well, it's okay. We won the election anyway. 75 million votes.
Oh, man. Okay. Yeah. Great. Most corrupt election in history by far. We won.
Oh, boy. I'm skipping the ones that are grammatically correct because you know that he didn't write.
As you know that
Yeah. Great. Most corrupt election in history by far. We won.
Wisdom and courage. That's it.
Voter fraud. Our guest is warming up in the bullpen, so we'll.
Yeah. Oh, wow. He retweets the same things over. Stock market's at new all-time highs. That doesn't make sense. Okay.
How can you give an election to someone who lost the election by hundreds of thousands of legal votes in each of the swing states? How can a country be run by an illegitimate president?
We will be intervening in the Texas plus many other states case. This is the big one. Our country needs a victory. That's funny.
Wisdom and courage.
Okay. I'm trying to find good ones. It's just like he retweets the same.
All right, let me do this one. I've been dying. I've been dying to do this one. Let me do this one.
Yeah.
At 10 p.m. on election evening, we were at 97% win with the so-called bookies.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. He's talking about the needle in the New York Times.
And then, like, as I reminded him, now I totally understand why you went bankrupt running casinos.
Yeah.
All right, let's do one more each because I'm actually more excited about our guest than I am about reading our tweets.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Do you see any that look good?
Yeah, I don't think we did. Yeah, so let's do this one.
Okay.
They got caught because we were leading by so much more than they ever thought possible. Late night ballot dumps went crazy.
Tremendous support from all over the country. All we ask is courage and wisdom from those that will be making one of the most important decisions in our country's history. God bless you.
All right. I feel like our guest is waiting long enough, although he hasn't commented on my tie yet, so I have to show him again.
Oh, God, here we go. I don't want to
see. So, for the folks at home, our secret guest, who actually isn't secret because I named him in the Twitter feed, is my buddy Christian Miner. So Christian is the executive director of the Florida Juvenile Justice Association. I kind of went on a tweet rant earlier today, and I talked about the value of friendship and my circle of friends and what matters to me and all that stuff. And Christian, I will say this publicly, is in that group of 3 or 4 guys who are basically like family to me. So I think I always was kind of interested in justice policy and criminal justice reform. And then I met Christian, and it was like, it was like how last week, Jessica, you were sort of in the shadows, and now this week you're like all bright and you're white and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what happened with me with Christian, when like suddenly understanding justice issues and just how fucked up everything is. So Christian, welcome, man. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the kind words, Jacob and Jessica. It's nice to finally meet you.
Nice to meet you.
To everyone watching, and it's a pleasure to be here. Yes, Jacob, you just want me to kind of take it from here and just kind of discuss a little bit of what I do?
Yeah. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to crack open the good stuff.
Ooh.
I like it. I like it. A good guy got you that.
Yeah. Somebody I respect deeply got me a bottle of that, and so I actually been saving some for tonight. I'm not going to finish the bottle tonight because that would be a pretty fun conversation. So Christian, let's start off with this, and if there's anything that I ask you that you don't really think, because of the work that you do and who you have to work with, because I like to push buttons. So if I say anything that you feel like you don't feel comfortable answering, that's perfectly fine. I'm not trying to do a gotcha or get you in trouble with anybody or have you call anybody out. Why don't you start with what exactly is the Florida Juvenile Justice Association?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And look, I'll keep it as nonpartisan as possible. I like to think that my issues that I work on, I've been blessed to work on issues that really sell themselves. Because I think that my issues, regardless of partisanship and party, they touch upon whatever humanity there is in people. And that's really the cool thing about my job. So the Florida Juvenile Justice Association, we're a 501c3. We constitute not just providers of juvenile justice services here in the state of Florida, from front-end prevention services, the kid gets a juvenile civil citation, diversionary mechanism, all the way to deep-end residential services where a kid is committed to a residential program for 6 months to a year to get treatment, but also just statewide stakeholders as well, people that are committed to reforming the system. I like to think, the great thing about my membership is we push a lot of policy stuff. And on the policy stuff we do, a lot of it, people would go, well, that's against your interests. And I go, yeah. I go, we want to work ourselves out of business. That's the goal at the end of the day. So we do a lot of policy stuff. I've been blessed. We work with, outside of lobbying, that our association represents about 75% of the DJJ system in the state of Florida. About 27 years ago, when DJJ was created in the state of Florida, the association was created alongside it as a partnership and as an association that really works and partners with the department. So we see ourselves kind of as synonymous with one another, and realize that we're dependent upon one another for our work. And I think that's why when you look at and you talk to people in the legislature here in the state of Florida, they go, DJJ, they go, that's the system that's working. And I think it's because of the partnership and the trust and the working together. These aren't just privatized providers. These are people that are working hand in hand with frontline people. We've got an awesome secretary. Pardon my language, she's one of the most kick-ass women you'll ever meet. She's held 60 different hats. She's been a judge on the bench. She was thrown into the deep end when Governor DeSantis brought her on in. And I'll tell you, regardless of where you stand with the governor, it was probably one of the best agency appointments that he's made to date. Because you had a woman, I remember I'd text her, hey, you want to go grab a drink? Nope, I'm studying. And she studied the entire system. She learned it from top to bottom. She's a good friend, good advocate, but really focused on the kids first. And I think really at the end of the day, our association, we're kid-centric. We're kid-focused. We have high levels of accountability within the work that we do, because it's not just enough to serve the kids. We want to have accountability in their outcomes and where they go when they leave our facilities. Every kid that you touch, you want them to leave the system better than when you came into it. And if he's not, then we got a problem. And there always is going to be mistakes and ups and downs. So that's the one hat that I kind of wear, managing that association with our membership. But also, I by trade, I'm a lobbyist by trade. And everyone hates lobbyists. You go, lobbyists. So I was pretty lucky at a young age. Experience shaped me. And again, I remember I kicked back to my dad. He told me, he said, son, you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. So at a young age, I ran with a rough crew, great family, rough crew, found myself in and out of the criminal justice system, even up until my early years in college. A lot of what I did was bad mistakes, but we don't realize that with the kids that we're dealing with in the juvenile justice system, kids' brains, their frontal cortex is developing into their mid-20s. They're thinking with their more reactive amygdala. They're making these decisions that they don't intend the consequences. I was one of those kids. So when I had the first opportunity, I started out. I was like legislative aide, went on, ran some House, ran some Senate campaigns, and then hopped on and helped run an association. It was an alliance, actually, that dealt with criminal justice reform. Then went in-house for an inmate reentry provider. And man, you talk about like the power of redemption. And you see, right now, like all on national news, Brandon Bernard was just put to death yesterday. It's a nationwide issue, and you look, I'll preface now. I know that we don't have a lot of Trump fans on here. So Trump has done some great stuff on criminal justice reform. I think it was a lot of cabinet people with the First Step Act, but you also have to touch upon the fact that more people have been put to death federally in this administration, the most since the 1920s. At a young age, I was a huge proponent of the death penalty. Now you see, people are not who they were in their teens. They're not necessarily who they were when they committed these mistakes. And working in inmate reentry facilities, my goal, I wasn't a lobbyist. I wasn't an in-house lobbyist. I was an in-house storyteller, because each and every single one of these individuals had a story to tell. And I could go into some of the stories, but these are you, these are me, these are your neighbor, these are your kids. One bad decision transformed their life. Luckily, the provider I worked for, they're the largest here in the state of Florida. So they used to give people the last 16 to 24 months of their sentence in prison, bring them into a reentry facility. The first thing they do, they get them a job, they get them a driver's license, and then they would stay there in community housing, and they go to and from work. So they pay for their court costs. They pay for their restitution. They'd actually pay for a portion of their stay in here, which alleviates the burden on the taxpayers. I mean, when we look back to fiscal conservatism. What is fiscal conservatism? Fiscal conservatism is second chances. we're not going to warehouse somebody away in the prison system for $37,000 a year on the taxpayer's dime. We're going to give them a shot at redemption. And I'm a firm believer in that there's no life is irredeemable. There's no such thing as a throwaway case. I've seen it with the worst of the worst kids that have turned around to do great things. Some of them are my friends, and they've opened up organizations to do that. So from there, I went on and I had the opportunity to take on the association for the last 3 years. It's been a real journey. I've been lucky again to work navigating the legislative process, and had great people on both sides of the aisle that do some pretty awesome work, and just some great friends and stakeholders. So for me, yeah, it's been a journey, but it's been a rewarding journey that I've enjoyed nonetheless. So that's a little bit of what we do, what I do, and kind of how I got there.
So why don't you walk us through, and I've had the pleasure of actually spending a couple of these days with you, but for the folks at home, why don't you walk us through a day in the life, because we don't have a full-time legislature here in Florida.
Yeah.
So during session, what does one of your days look like?
God. Okay. So wearing a lot of hats as like an association executive, and also doing like the lobbying work. It's kind of like I haven't had a vacation in the last 6 years. I'll be 34 this year, and I'm like, I'm going to take one this year. So, with the election cycles, it kind of runs, when election cycles are on, I'm doing fundraising. I'm knocking doors. Again, for me, one of the biggest keys, and it's not about me, it's about my membership. I serve my membership. They do some great work. I never want the work that I do to overshadow the great work that they do, because they're the ones that really serve the mission. It's always mission first. But really trying in the off season, outside of the legislative session, try and find champions. People in the legislature are running for office that can be champions for you. And that doesn't have to be, we're a Republican controlled legislature here, but that doesn't mean that a Republican necessarily has to be your champion. Great Democratic champions, great Republican champions. Each one can hold a different role. With Republicans, typically they're in leadership here. So when you have a Republican champion, they can make a lot happen with leadership. Democratic champions, they're great storytellers. They're awesome. They can get out there. They can tell your story. A lot of them are in the community. Most of what I do is getting these people that are running for office or that are legislators, getting them in and visiting each and every one of my members, seeing the facilities, but more importantly, getting them in front of the kids. The kids tell the story. I can sit there. I can pitch them all I want. I'm a lobbyist. I can pitch them all I want on stuff, but the kids are the ones that really sell the stories. So in the off season, that's what I do. Again, we have part-time legislature here. People oftentimes they hammer the legislature. They don't realize this is not a full-time job for these guys. These guys have day jobs. They got families. These people are away from their families. It's not easy being a legislator. And
not only that, but most of them are 6+ hours away from home.
Yeah. I mean, you look at like the concentration, Miami-Dade, Broward. These guys they're flying Silver Airways. They're putting their damn lives on the line every day flying Silver. You take a Silver flight up here, man. You're committed to your people. These guys, they come up here. We've got committee weeks starting soon. So, as committee weeks approach, you really want to develop your legislative agenda, what your priorities, what your initiatives are going to be. A lot of that's going to be, based on how you laid your groundwork in the year with members coming forward, who you picked as your champions, where they sit on leadership. In the Senate, we've got, for our associations, really great allies. We got guys like, Senator Jeff Brandes, libertarian Republican who has led criminal justice reform.
Just on 60 Minutes.
Just a great guy that it's like we're here in 2020. Jeff Brandes is in like 2036. And a lot of the policy that he's pushing forward is stuff like conditional medical release, aging inmates, getting them out of the system. These are people that are sitting there eating up your entire budget in the state of Florida. You put them back and put them on federal Medicare, and healthcare. It's not falling on state taxpayers' dollars. These are nonviolent individuals. Put them back in society. Let them function. He's doing a lot with sentencing reform. One of the big things we have are these mandatory minimum sentences that are on the books. We got drug offenders that are getting ensnared in the criminal justice system. They get caught with some oxycodone to feed their habit. Most of them are dealing to feed a habit. They're not drug dealers. and they're facing these mandatory minimum sentences. So, a judge has no judicial discretion to depart from whatever the mandatory minimum sentence is. So this judge can be sitting there, and the state prosecutor can be asking for time, and the judge goes, I want to give the guy drug treatment. Well, no, you can't. You can't depart from the mandatory minimum, judicial discretion. So Brandis is running a lot of sentencing reform stuff. And that's a great question. Yeah, I saw someone on marijuana legalization. Huge fiscal burden if we passed, legalized marijuana. One of the big issues we have right now. So one of my big policy items that I'm running right now, and it should pass this year. It died last year in the final weeks of session. It got caught up in a little bit of a snafu, but it's on juvenile expungement. So what we have here in the state of Florida. And I'll tie juvenile expungement in the bill that we're running into. As a sponsor in the Senate, we have Senator Keith Berry, staunch Republican out of Gainesville, huge criminal justice reformer. He's chairman of criminal justice appropriations in the Senate. And then in the House, I've got Representative David Smith out of Seminole County, another Republican. But last year we had massive bipartisan support of this bill. I know this is going to drive Jacob up a wall, but probably one of the most conservative, far-right guys in the world helped sponsor the bill. His name's Anthony Sabatini. And that's my boy. And not everyone's going to agree with him, but I'm going to tell you what, this is the great thing about what I do, is that he's a co-prime on this bill with a lot of Democrats. And you know why Anthony was in it? Because Anthony, as a kid, was arrested for something and went through a diversionary program, and it impacted his life. Again, let's take away all the politics. Let's take away the partisanship.
Just don't hire him to be your lawyer.
I'm not going to comment on that. But so this bill, what happens is in the state of Florida, we have things called diversionary programs. One could be a civil citation, but there's post-arrest diversionary programs. So a kid gets arrested for a misdemeanor marijuana, for the person that asked the question on there. Judge has the judicial discretion to defer that child to a post-arrest diversionary program. So complete this program. Once you complete it, your record will be, in the state of Florida, the law on the books is their record's automatically expunged free of charge. It's pretty cool. It's not a get out of jail free card. A lot of it they could have to go to they could have to go to drug treatment classes. They could have to go do community service. For the most part, it's really, let's address whatever led to the kid smoking pot, So they go through a post-arrest diversionary program for a misdemeanor. Records expunged automatically free of charge. It's really cool. But the problem is, so a kid can be arrested for a felony. So going back to marijuana, most people don't realize these kids now. So what they've started doing is there's not the traditional joint that we had in high school. You had the kids toking on a joint when I was in high school, go out on lunch break and stuff. I ran cross country. Weed wasn't in my wheel well, but they were out there toking on. So now they get the vape pens, and it's a high concentration of THC oil. So a kid gets arrested for it. It's actually a felony, automatic felony because of concentration. So he could be referred to a post-arrest diversionary program. Again, we're given law enforcement discretion. We do not place mandates on law enforcement here in the state of Florida. It's not the way our legislature works. So the kid can be referred to that. He can complete a post-arrest diversionary program. So at that point, you're going, okay, the kid served his burden. He did his time. His record should be expunged, right? No. In the state of Florida, for a felony offense like that, even if he completes a post-arrest diversionary program, his record cannot be expunged until 5 years since the close of the case, or until the age of 21. So what we have is kids being arrested for felonies. They could steal, just $1 over the felony property theft threshold, which we raised up to $750 last year. It was at $300. Last time it was changed was 1987. I think about $300. We had kids that would hide another kid's backpack and they'd have an iPhone in it and they would get a felony theft charge. So we raised that up. Representative and now Congressman Byron Donalds, African-American Republican out of Naples, helped pass that and drive it. He's up there and in Congress now on the Hill. He led the charge on that. So we raised that felony property theft threshold. But what we have is kids that are 14 and they go to apply to the military. They go to apply for student loans. They go to apply to housing and stuff, and the felony is still on their record, even though they've completed the diversionary program. It's coming off. It doesn't differentiate. So they either have to get like a waiver in the military, which is a long, arduous process. If it's a drug offense, most times they won't give you student loans, period. And then on housing and stuff like that, it's still on their jobs. So you have kids, at 18, they're applying. Oh, I got arrested at 14 for a felony. It was, dropped to a diversionary program. So this thing really follows them. And we've had a number of kids that we've worked with to tell their story on it. So our bill would basically take the language, and once the kid completes the program, it'll make it like a misdemeanor. Their record's automatically expunged free of charge. Huge bipartisan support. Again, last year it got caught up in a bunch of just horse trading at the end of session. It was the only bill that was left alive, which was, I was like happy because it was like the only criminal justice bill left, but that also made it a vehicle for other people's amendments. So this year we're going to pass it. We're going to put it through, and it's actually just right off the top, it's going to help about 21,000 kids in the state of Florida that'll be open to have their record expunged. So a day in the life, get up. If there's criminal justice committee meetings, education committee meetings, we do a ton of education lobbying for kids in the DJJ education system. Get up, go to committee meetings, make my rounds around the halls, drop in on most of the members. I have relationships, make sure that we're working our bill at every single committee stop. You're always working your bill at the next committee stop, not the first committee stop, the next committee stop. Let's plan on getting it sent up there. If there's people, people hand out a lot of handout packets. Man, I do one page because legislators, if it's longer than that, it's going in the trash. Keep it short, keep it simple, be mindful of their time. If you got 15-minute meeting with a legislator, make it 5. Go in there, be precise with your points, be clear with your ask, don't beat around the bush. And I'd say the biggest thing too is always provide honest information. All you have in this business is your credibility and your honesty. And once you lose that with a legislator, you will never get it back. Always be honest on who's on the other side of your issues. I like to meet with everybody that's going to oppose my bill. See if there's a middle ground that we can go ahead and meet and kind of edge in from there. Usually my day, it'll start, 7 a.m. based on committee. I'll run through the day up in the Capitol. I bring my laptop up there. I'm one of those nerds. I have my little knapsack and run around the Capitol with my knapsack and answer emails because I still got to manage the association. And then, come 4 or 5 o'clock, usually am downtown and pour myself a drink and sit at, downtown at Andrews or maybe, I try and stay away from the Governor's Club downtown because, no good goes on at the Governor's Club. But every once in a while you get a swing in and usually leads to dinner. If I'm not drinking, I squeeze in a run at the end of the day, or I squeeze one in the morning, and then wake up, rinse, repeat. Usually the good thing is, with my job is there's not a ton of breathing down your neck. Get your job done, get it done in the way that you're supposed to do it. It's usually a Tuesday to Thursday thing here with our legislature on committee meetings. Everyone heads home on a Friday back to their family. Catch up on the weekend and then regroup. Once session rolls around, though, it's 60 days straight. I'm really interested to see what the session's going to look like this year because you can't go into the damn building at this point. With COVID, they did have organizational session last week, 2 weeks ago. So everyone came up here. They did org sesh, walked new legislators through orientation in both the House and the Senate. So I posted up, kind of like a prostitute on a corner at Andrews, the restaurant, and tried to snag whatever legislator that I could to discuss my issues and kind of sat out there because that's basically where you are because you can't get into the Capitol. And you always kind of feel like a schmuck sitting there, grabbing everybody. But it's kind of the nature of where we're at. We're kind of waiting. This giant stalemate to see kind of what's going to happen as it pertains to COVID protocols and getting in and out of the Capitol. It's changed the game. Unfortunately, I think the people that end up hurting the most are the people in our communities that come up and do a lot of community advocates. Most of them don't have the resources or the opportunity to lobby legislators or work campaigns in the off season. So these are a lot of people that come into committees and advocate on bills. The access is going to be low. They're not going to have the opportunity to meet with a lot of people. Time is very finite up here on the opportunities you have. So it's a shame to kind of, when you think about it from that respect. We do have a number of really good legislators here, though, that hold a lot of community forums. Guys like Brandis, like Keith Perry, like Joe. I mean, even Joe Gruters, our Republican chairman here in Florida, Jason Pizzo, Chevron Jones. A lot of people in the Senate I work with. In the House, we got guys like Bobby Payne, Alex Andrade, huge criminal justice reform guys. Paul Renner, who's the speaker designate. Cord Bird. These guys they do a ton of community forums, discuss these issues. So for us, I think what we've seen, criminal justice reform it was this ugly issue no one wanted to touch. Republicans didn't want to touch it, and now it's this hot topic issue. Kim Kardashian,
Right.
fucking Kim Kardashian. Don't get me started. I'm gonna pour another glass of wine as I go into this. So she's like the spokesperson now for criminal justice reform. It's all of a sudden cool because Kim's a part of it. And I get it. I love it. She's helped drive a lot. She's done some good stuff. But this used to be this like taboo issue. And now it's this really hot topic. It's a sexy issue now. And she's done some really great stuff with Alice Marie Freeman. You see with the First Step Act. She was released under that. Trump ran, a commercial during the Super Bowl. Alice Marie Freeman, how far we've actually come, regardless of how you feel about Donald Trump, how far we've come where you see a commercial from somebody who was released from the prison system during the Super Bowl. It's pretty damn cool. Yeah. And I've worked with groups, Charles Koch organization, CKI, AFP, Texas Public Policy Foundation, Right on Crime. These are all these nationwide groups, you'll see them working across the aisle with the ACLU and SPLC on criminal justice reform. So we've had this vast dichotomy of polarization, and these groups are now working together to really do some meaningful things here, not just in the state of Florida, but in the United States of America. I think a lot of it stems from, one, you are seeing a society that starts to believe in second chances. Two, I don't think you've met anyone who doesn't have a friend or a family member that suffered from, whether it's substance abuse, mental health, the criminal justice system. Over 60% of our people in the criminal justice system are substance abuse, mental health, or co-occurring disorder. That's we're warehousing. In Florida's 49th in the United States of America as it pertains to mental health and substance abuse funding.
Yeah.
The fuck are we doing? We got to do something different. There's people that are ODing in parking lots waiting for treatment beds, and that's why I think this issue, it's really become humanized. And it's hitting people hard. Do I do any work with the high school to prison pipeline? Yeah, I mean, we do. So a number of our providers are alternative schools. Even in our residential facilities, I'll tell you what, these teachers in the residential facilities are something else. I mean, they are dealing with kids if you're in a residential program, you have a high acuity, and most of it stems from deep trauma or substance abuse, trauma typically from the households that they grow up in. These kids can go to like a day treatment program. They take 6 steps forwards and they go home and they take 8 steps back. We're not treating them in the house. So these kids in residential programs, the teachers you think like being just a regular teacher is a hard job. Try being a DJJ school teacher. They didn't get teacher pay raises when we raised pay raises here in the state of Florida. They don't get loan forgiveness. They don't get, the pay raises. Title I dollars aren't following these kids to these schools. I mean, it's hard. These are teachers that really care about what they're doing. People oftentimes they ask me, they go like, what's the cure for the criminal justice system? If one thing, it's education. Literally, it's education. Like, if we're not educating these kids from a young age and getting to them early on, it's education. The average prisoner Actually, I don't like to call them prisoners. It's a terrible term. The average individual in the adult criminal justice system has a third grade reading level. That should tell you everything about the justice system here in the state of Florida and the United States of America. Third grade reading level. When I was dealing with prisoners or people that were clients that were re-entering society, probably one of the most defining moments for them and their rehabilitation was when they could write a letter home to their family. It's deep and it hits hard, but you realize, that just why they're there. If you can't fill out a job application, what the hell are you going to do?
Right.
Probably commit crime, or more importantly, if you have a felony on your record, and you can't get a job, what are you going to do? And that's where we're at. It's just so cyclical, and it's cyclical. They keep going on and going on and going on. And we got to work to break that. And a lot of it's going to be policy stuff. And I think that, I really think that the governor signing off on some meaningful criminal justice reform this year, that the legislature sends to his desk, that could do a lot for him. More importantly, outside of, and his wife has done some, Casey DeSantis, she just had a press conference. She's done some pretty incredible stuff for childhood mental health and substance abuse. She opened up, it was called Something for Caring Initiative. It's terrible that I don't know it because it's there, press conference. But she provided an online data it's a database that provides resources to families in need, whether it's substance abuse, mental health treatment services, so on and so forth. She's helped open up hubs, telehealth hubs around the state of Florida, that'll provide mental health, substance abuse treatment services. Everything's become incredibly harder because of COVID. Just even with our DJJ system, we were lucky. Like I said, we have a rock star secretary. Anyone who wants to look her up, named Simone Marstiller. And she was when COVID first came out in February, she was on it. So she reaches out to every single provider and she's like, look, we're gonna get our shit together. If kids are sick, so on and so forth, we're stopping visits. And it sucks because here's the biggest thing too. In our DJJ system is, if a kid gets sick, they're not getting sick. They're testing positive, but we've not seen any kids that are actually really sick in the DJJ system. They test positive for COVID, but you have to isolate them. And that's 2 weeks of isolation. They feel like it's punishment and it's hard. A kid's going, why do I have to be isolated? What did I do wrong? Kid didn't do anything wrong. He can't have it. Visitation can't happen with his families. And the secretary and her staff and the providers did a great job to try and provide resources, telehealth visits and stuff like that, services where the family could meet electronically. But that's hard, with kids with COVID, and they feel like they're being punished even more because of this. It's just, this thing is reared its ugly head, and it's really made even you look at the justice system. DOC got hit really hard. See here in Florida, does legislation like this stand on its own, or does it get packaged in another bill? Okay, yeah, great question. There is a giant criminal justice reform package every year. There's a number of standalone bills, and they end up dying early on in the process because they don't make it through the committee hearing process, and then they all get lumped into a giant criminal reform package, criminal justice reform package bill, and then it dies. Usually, the contention is sentencing reform. And there's certain ideologies. The Senate has traditionally, it's no big secret. I'm happy to say this, knowing that I'm not going to get throttled by my fellow members. It's no big secret that the Senate has always been pretty pro sentencing reform, and the House is a bit more conservative in their approaches. You have a number of former state prosecutors there that are leading in the House, and with absolute and complete understanding on their take. They represent state prosecutors, but they are not as far along on sentencing reform as the Senate is. Now, the one thing the House has been great on has been expungement stuff. So you look at that, and then you look at last year. I guess one of the biggest issues plaguing the state of Florida right now, we'll go into, is
drinking wine.
He's drinking red wine. I've got my,
Yes.
And one of the biggest issues we're seeing right now is minimum age of arrest. So we are seeing 5 and 6 year olds arrested in school, and like they're being handcuffed in front of their peers for like temper tantrums.
Yeah.
Or they have like mental health issues. One girl had like sleep apnea, and they're being handcuffed in front of their peers. A lot of it's happening in the Orlando and the Orange County area. And I get a bunch of the calls from their parents. They call me, and I try and a lot of it has to be played out kind of in the court of public opinion. And what happens is these kids, they get arrested, they're sent to a juvenile detention facility to be screened. Every single one of the cases has been dropped by the state attorney. State attorneys aren't going to prosecute this, but it's like that's not the important part. It's the trauma.
Yeah.
It's the trauma, of a young Black child being handcuffed by a law enforcement officer, placed in a car in front of their peers. And what type of damage does that have on their cognitive development as they get older? What type of damage does that have on their trust for police and the entire system moving forward? And I'm telling you right now, it reared its ugly head last year. There was like 4 or 5 arrests in a month period of time. And probably one of the more conservative speakers of the House, Jose Oliva, that the state's seen, he gets out there on the floor and he's like, we got to do something about this. I mean, and that sent a huge message, I mean, the supermajority in the House here, and he's going, we got to do something about this. Like, this has got to be solved. I think you'll see some minimum age of arrest legislation filed this session to address that. And I think it'll probably be filed by Democrats, but I think you'll see some Republican bipartisan support on it. Because I think anyone can identify with the fact that, like, if your kid, white, Black, Republican, Democrat, your kid has an outburst in school for any reason, he could be, on the spectrum, and a lot of these kids are on the spectrum.
Yeah.
A lot of them are on the spectrum, and the thing is, we don't train and teach our law enforcement really these days to deal with kids there, and I think that's something that we could do, and to see that kid arrested, it hits a parent, and we get a lot of parents in the legislature. And I think that really resonates with them. I think that's going to be a big one this year. I think juvenile expungement will be a big one this year. I think expungement in general. I don't just think that the bill that we're running this year is going to pass. I think that you're going to probably see a couple of expungement bills passed that'll allow. I think the next one it'll allow kids that have had an expungement to also get an adult expungement. To open it up. Right now it's one. You get one. I'd love to have one. Been there, done that. Again, passion is driven through experience, and thank God for my experience, but not for God and my experience. I wouldn't have the appreciation for what I do. And I remember being very jaded at a young age on criminal justice system and the people that were involved in it. And it's funny how experience in life shapes you to it. Another big criminal justice issue this year, God, again, sentencing reform will be there. I hope Senator Brandis has just filed a couple of bills on conditional aging inmate release that I talked about a little bit earlier. You get these guys, some of them are terminally ill. Some of them are diabetics. They're losing limbs and they're like sitting in the prison system and palliative care. Let them out.
Yeah.
Right.
What are they going to do? Somebody's got to in wheelchairs. What the fuck are they going to do? It's a no-brainer. And you'd think it'd be a no-brainer. The problem is, in the state of Florida, they got to serve 85% of their sentence under their statutory law. So they have to serve 85% of their sentence. So I think you're going to see a push to move it to 65%. And I think you'll see a push to deviate from that 85%. Maybe get some of these people out on like electronic monitoring. Medicaid either way. Yes, sir. He's right on. Get him out, get him off the taxpayer dime, get him back out, and also let them, I don't know, let's make them whole. Let's put them back with their family. These people are dying.
So what's the biggest impediment for making that happen, though?
What's traditionally, what's keeping that from happening?
Yeah, like what's your biggest roadblock? I don't mean who, and I'm not even talking necessarily politically, but is it education? Like, is it educating other legislators, or
No,
is it that?
I mean, there's prosecutorial pushback.
Yeah,
Um, and prosecutors. I mean, I'm not saying anything that I'd be worried about. They testify in committee. People need to serve this, and traditionally, trying to deviate from 85% of a sentence has been taboo. I mean, it's don't push that issue. You've had some guys that really get out of the realm of it again, guys like Jason Pizzo and Senator Brandis, and Senator Pizzo. I would be remiss if I didn't comment. I think we've got probably one of the best conservative Senate presidents teed up this year that we've seen in the last decade. Wilton Simpson. He's an egg farmer, and he's a huge proponent of juvenile services, but he's also brilliant, self-made individual who
genuinely good guy. He's not one of those angry right wing guys. He's a genuinely
no,
thoughtful. Yeah, I like
works
Wilton a lot.
works on the ground, but also, I mean, he was working the state for Republicans, invested in races, but he also realized the importance of investing in his community, being a small business owner, and he realized the importance of. You look at the Senate in the state of Florida; it's a very collegiate environment. There's a lot of respect. I'm telling you right now, there's a ton of respect. Joe Gruters is one of my close friends. He's the GOP chairman here in Florida. He delivered Florida to Donald Trump. And you talk to Gary Farmer, who's the minority leader, Senator Farmer, minority leader. They were bumping head to head on Senate races, just here in the store of Florida. And you sit there, you get them outside of the Capitol, you have dinner. There's massive amounts of mutual respect between the two. They can set the partisan ideals aside. And you see those guys have worked well with one another, but it's a collegiate environment. So there's a lot of conversation there. So Wilton Simpson reached across the aisle and he tapped a Democrat. He tapped a former federal prosecutor and Senator Jason Pizzo. And I always joke about it, but it's true. I tell Jason he's too damn smart for the legislature, because he is so smart. But I think that Senate President Simpson realized, okay, I've got a guy here who knows more about the criminal justice system than everyone combined. I'd rather have him chairing and being the first stop for any criminal justice bills that are coming down the line than having him be the last stop for a criminal justice bill, and then he kills it. So I think that you'll see a lot of work there. So do I talk to current and former policemen? Absolutely.
You've got him on your board.
Yeah, great question. Our association works directly with law enforcement. I'm telling you right now, our law enforcement, they get a bad rap here in the state of Florida. Look, I've dealt with law enforcement personally. I've shared my experience. It's not fun. But is it ever fun dealing with the criminal justice system when you did something stupid? No. Law enforcement have the hardest damn job. They get no respect. They put their lives on the line every single night. You don't know what situation is going to go wrong when you leave your family and your children. It could be a random traffic stop. They could be shot. You look at everything going on right now with this whole Rebecca Jones thing. We've villainized FDLE and made them look like, the Gestapo. I'm telling you right now, our law enforcement, the first people that I go to when I run a bill, I go to law enforcement. I go to the Florida Sheriff's Association. I go to Police Benevolent Association. I go to the Florida Police Chiefs, and I run it by them. Hey, guys, are you okay with this? If you have any objections to it, what are your objections? How can we work through those objections? What's the best way to massage this bill? I'm a huge believer in getting buy-in, and I'm also a big believer in on the policy front. A half a loaf of bread is better than no loaf at all. And if I can work across the aisle, I may not take a full win, but what I can do is you take a half win, you analyze the policy, get empirical data-driven evidence from the policy that passed that shows it works. You can come back and you can take the next step forward the next year. That's why you see the First Step Act. Well, there can be a Second Step Act and a Third Step Act and a Fourth Step Act. let's move it on forward. So yeah, for me, in my role at the association, I think law enforcement is incredibly important. I think it's almost more, for me, law enforcement is almost more important than the legislature, because I really want them on board. You don't want to mandate them. I would love to see law enforcement get more training in substance abuse, mental health, working with people that are developmentally disabled, and seeing a lot more training there. And also seeing a lot more utilization of diversionary mechanisms like civil citations, adult civil citations. And we see down in Miami, South Florida, they're doing a ton. They're doing a lot of civil citations for like low-level marijuana offenses. You got it. Okay, here's a civil citation. You got a joint? Cool. We don't need to be arresting people for this stuff. And it even more so bogging down the court systems, like in the middle of COVID. I mean, this shit is costly when you're putting people in the court systems, and they're hurting right now. I mean, they're really hurting. It's expensive, and DJJ is actually going to be doing a lot this year to address technical violations for kids that are on like detention or they're on probation. They're going to be encouraging law enforcement, state attorneys to take a better look at why a kid had a violation of probation, so a technical violation. Look at, did it have to do with not getting home on curfew on time? Okay, well, why? Family, transportation, rural areas, so on and so forth. So those are some big reforms that the Secretary of DJJ is looking at this year. And it's also, it's good for the kids. I mean, it's really good for the kids, but it's also good fiscally for the state of Florida, for the court system, so on and so forth.
So one question too is, it seems like your area is one of the few areas these days where there's bipartisan support. So how do we expand that? Like, what is the secret to getting that bipartisan support? Is it because it's about kids? Is it because there's good stories? Or is there a lesson that you have learned with working on both sides of the aisle that can be carried over to other issues?
I genuinely believe that every single member of our legislature is a good person. And I genuinely believe that each and every one of them has family, friends that have somehow, as I said before, been impacted by this. And I think that's what feeds the buy-in and support. I think the big shift outside of, God, I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. There's the humanitarian aspect and there's the fiscal aspect of it too.
Right.
And for me, both of them move the ball forward. But I've just genuinely seen people care. I mean, I don't know if there's a secret formula for it. I've just seen people care. We had, there's a great member at the House who's in leadership. His name's Bobby Payne. He's out of Palatka, good guy, good old boy. And I remember on the campaign trail, I brought him into an inmate reentry facility just to do a tour. I represented the facility at the time. He ended up spending like 2.5 hours there. And he was like sitting there just talking to, I call them clients. He was just talking to them, how'd you wind up here? What led you here? What's different about being in an inmate reentry facility than there's being in prison? Because these guys, a reentry facility is like the Ritz-Carlton compared to prison. You don't got to look over your shoulder. You got some freedom. You get, I think the biggest thing that I haven't touched on yet is that you get to wear regular clothes. So here's, the criminal justice system. It erases your identity. You're a number, and in a community-based reentry facility. You can start to create your identity again. You can wear clothes, your job can define you. They do a lot to work to place people in jobs. People take a lot of pride in the jobs that they have. So you can create that identity again. That's all part of rehabilitation and reentry and making sure that you don't recidivate. Most people that come just straight out of the criminal justice system, they get $50 in a bus ticket home. That is what you get when you leave Department of Corrections today. $50, and not a bus ticket home. A bus ticket back to the county in which you were arrested.
Correct. Yep.
So unless you can get out there, you're fucked.
Yeah.
And that's a hard pill to swallow because 50% of those people will recidivate. Now, people that go through reentry facilities, you're looking at recidivism rates between the 10 and 15th percentile. Huge difference. A 1% reduction in recidivism, now it's my little nerd side, is $4 to $6 million in savings over 3 years to the state of Florida. So let that sink in. So it's a lot of money. But more importantly, too, let's look at the aspects of when someone successfully reintegrates back into society, a family's now made whole. So kids don't follow in their footsteps. The mother who may have had to do something insidious to pick up and make extra money or so on and so forth, they're made whole. So it really is, it's a whole familial type effect that you see with regard to that.
Hold on 1 second.
What's the juvenile offender recidivism rate there? Is it rising or falling? Okay, so recidivism has remained steady. We are at an all-time low for arrests. It's a good thing. We are at an all-time low for arrests. A lot of that is attributed to diversionary programs and juvenile civil citations. Pinellas County, you got Sheriff Bob Gualtieri, who is the head of the Florida Sheriff's Association, super Republican guy. His county uses more juvenile civil citations than like anyone in the state of Florida. It's great to see. Increases in that. Recidivism rates really depend on acuity. I talked with the secretary. Even you get to think a lot of the kids that go into our residential facilities. I'm partial, and I'm going to remain partial and take it with a grain of salt because I represent residential providers. So I don't want to seem jaded in any way, shape. But I think that every single one of our residential providers goes above and beyond to serve kids. I've met with their direct care staff that are working on the front lines. These are people that are overworked and underpaid. The average starting salary is $20,500 a year. Jesus Christ. And they've not gotten pay raises. One of the things I do every year is I lobby for a $2 million appropriation every year that gives each of these staff people a $2,000 bonus. It got vetoed this year by the governor. It was understandable that the governor had to veto it because of COVID. And it was perceived as a bonus. We're going to change the language on that. It's not a bonus. I mean, it's just really getting people up commensurate with pay because DOC workers have gotten pay raises, but our average DJJ worker is $20,500 a year. It's really incumbent upon them and their investment in the kids to curb recidivism rates. Like I said, the acuity of these kids is high, and in 6 to 12 months placement, can you really undo 10 years of trauma? 10 years, these kids have many of them endured serious trauma. They have substance abuse that stems back to, you get kids starting doing drugs now at 6, 7, 8 years old. Is a year stay in a residential facility enough to undo that? I don't know. I don't personally believe so. And I think that's where you see recidivism come into play. There's some kids that I think the highest recidivism rates you see are like kids with the sex offender populations. It's a tough population to deal with, and I know it sends shivers down everyone's spines when you start to think about sex offenses amongst kids that age. But you have to also kind of take a step back and look and understand that most of these kids were also victimized, and these kids were victims of sex offenses, so they know nothing different. It's behavior that they were conditioned to. So as their brain was developing, this is the behavior that was imprinted in their mind. So you really have to go through and you have to hope that they're in a program. You have to go recircuit their entire brain and the hardware in their brain. That's hard to do. And they tend to have decently high recidivism rates amongst those kids too.
I'm just going to point out, because if someone doesn't know you, you sort of sound like a bleeding heart liberal. And I'm going to ironically point out to all of our listeners and viewers that you are actually a conservative.
I'm a pretty staunch conservative, yeah.
Yeah. No, but I think that's interesting because I think that the stereotype is that any kind of criminal justice reform or juvenile issues or whatever, it's all the tree huggers. It's all the bleeding heart. Oh, I love you. It's okay. We don't care that you killed 17 people. We still love you. And the reality is you are probably more conservative than I am. And here you are on the front lines of this battle. And I want people to understand that this isn't a left and right issue. that this is a real life, people who give a shit issue.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why I love you.
I'm a huge, there's no illusion. I'm a huge Governor DeSantis supporter. I believe it's the hardest job being a governor. It's a lose-lose job. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Being thrown into a pandemic, it's even harder. You're going to make decisions. It's like when Barack Obama was president. I have tons of admiration for Barack Obama. As a Democratic president, I think his administration was marred by some terrible policy decisions, which every single presidency is going to be marred by some sort of bad policy decision.
Right.
But I think that guys like Barack Obama, he carried himself with a lot of integrity, respect. Those are things that they can't be taken from you. You can only give those away. There's one of the things about Barack Obama that I really liked. I like a lot of some of the policy decisions Trump made. I don't like the level of integrity, respect that he's conducted himself with. There's a very serious lack thereof. Governor DeSantis has been given a hard time over a number of issues. And I do believe that the media has unfairly painted him in a light that's negative. I know that in my time having spent with the governor and his wife largely is who I've spent time with. We've brought at-risk kids every year. We do a big reception. We bring 3 at-risk kids that exemplify redemption, gone on to success out of the system. We bring them up to the governor's mansion, and his wife shouldn't just get to know these kids. She brings them out of their shells. A lot of them don't want to talk. They want to sit there. They're quiet, and she goes in, breaks that hard exterior, gets it out of them, talks to them, shares her experience. Most people don't know that Ron, there's actually a young man that Ron engaged with who was going down a bad path when Ron was in the Navy, took him under his wing. And now the guy he was going down a bad path, now he's got a successful career in the military. So she often shares that story of this young man and the direction he could have gone. I think that the governor, he's not sometimes great at expressing his feelings, but I think that he has a great heart, and I think a lot of it comes out through his wife too. And I think we've seen, at least in this gubernatorial administration, probably one of the largest focuses on mental health and substance abuse than we've seen in a long time. I mean, in a long time, more than Charlie Crist. There has been a very intense focus by the governor and his wife on mental health and substance abuse. And that's something that permeates nationwide issues. And they've done some really great stuff in the way of that. So I'm a staunch conservative, but again, as Jacob will tell you, I'll go raise money for somebody on the left. Guys like my good friend, Senator Chevron Jones, he's a milestone in the state of Florida on not just the way that he conducts himself and what he does for his community. He's the first openly gay senator, African-American senator, a good human being, cares about these issues. People like that, I love to work with. I love to
shout out to Chev.
Yeah, big shout out to Chevron Jones. I met Chev when he was in the House. I think he was a brand new member, and I was pretty damn new into the legislative process. And I was happy to see him win a race and move from the House on up to the Senate.
I'm going to tell a story to the audience. Obviously, you know the story, of course. But I'm going to tell a story about Chev real quick because I love Chev. And I always use Chev as an example of somebody who literally couldn't be more opposite politically than me. Like, if there's a position where I'm at, Chev is guaranteed to be the far opposite side of that position. So I think it was the year before last. My son, who of course Christian knows, was paging in the legislature, and I think I had come down early because I had to give him a ride, and I had come downtown early to the house to get ready to pick him up. So I was sitting up in the balcony of the house, and all of a sudden I get a beep on my phone, and now the rules are in the house gallery, you're not supposed to be on your device, which is stupid because everybody is. And so I happen to glance down and look, and it's a picture of Chev, who Christian's about to laugh because Chev's about 5'3", And my son, who now is 6'6", who at that time I think was like 6'4" at age 13. And picture the two of them, and it just Chev with a big smile, and I keep doing this backwards because I'm not on camera, but, and I'll tell you, he just texted me this picture, didn't say anything at all, just text, and it's like, I didn't tell him that my son was in the house that week. Chev had no idea. He was like, and then he texted me, he was like, hey, this kid looks like you. Do you know him? He's just that kind of person. And Chev, again, knows, I used to be a Republican. I'm certainly significantly more conservative than he is. And yet he's one of the coolest, most genuine, most I love you human beings. Literally in the holy shit, almost 30 years I've been in politics. I can tell you, this isn't like the Praise Chev show, although we might have to get him on here. Probably one of the 5 coolest human beings I've ever known in my entire political career. And again, nothing to do with politics. Dude is like way opposite of me on pretty much every issue. And yet, he's a genuine human being. He's somebody you can talk to. He's somebody you can work with. He's not going to bullshit you. He's not going to play games. So more chefs for sure.
Yeah.
So dude, here's the thing. I know you're like the audience doesn't know this, but you're like basically waiting to go to dinner. And so I'm like,
I cooked it. My little sister, I cooked it for her early. My little sister is here visiting from town. So my sister was, she does reconstructive plastic surgery. She was at Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital in New York City, and she got tired of being constantly locked down. And she is now at Moffitt Cancer Hospital down there doing reconstructive breast surgery there. So she's here visiting in town. I cooked her dinner nice and early, man. I cooked a couple of flank steaks and some salmon for her. I think I'm looking at it. I think she's passed out on the lounge chair out on the porch with the dog in the fire pit there. So she's all fed and she's happy. She's 3 years younger than me. So she's all good.
Fair enough. So we will we'll take a couple more questions if anybody has them, and obviously Jessica as well. So okay, so let me ask you this, Christian, and this is weird for me because you and I have already talked about like 95% of these things. So I'm trying to think through in my head of conversations we've had. So if you were appointed dictator of Florida for a year, which would be a seriously cool thing to have happen, by the way, I'm just going to say. And besides appointing me, head of FDLE or some kind of really cool job where I could just go arrest people, like what's one thing that you would do if you were dictator of Florida for a year?
What would be my one overarching policy?
Yeah. I don't mean like, make, Jacob tax-free for a year or whatever. I mean like something policy related to your issue. I didn't think I could help you on that one.
I know. Expand and increase the use of diversionary mechanisms for offenses. So why? Because we are a economy-driven state, whether it's tourism, whether it's medical tourism. We're a huge medical tourism state. People come here for procedures, fucking all over, especially South America. Yeah. Medical tourism, regular tourism. We're a huge economy-driven state. And something as simple as a misdemeanor, something as simple as a misdemeanor can disqualify someone from ever having a job. We see it. I mean, it's a competitive job market. You see people with graduate degrees fighting for $30,000 a year jobs at this point. And so, you have a misdemeanor charge for something incredibly stupid, minor in possession of alcohol, it could be anything. It makes your life that much harder. So you can't get a job. So what do? You sell drugs. Get caught selling drugs, go to prison. You get another offense, so on and so forth. So my thing would be, expanding the usage of diversionary mechanisms that keep people out of the justice system, and expanding the use, of what they can give to as offenses, because you're not having to expunge their records. and you are not creating this massive, and I'm telling you, it's fucking massive in the state of Florida. The work, like the exclusionary workforce of people that have criminal records. I mean, I think it's like 1 in 3 people have a criminal record in general, like 1 in 3 people. I mean, for anything, you know what I mean? You could go take anything. You walk out of a bar, you know, with a beer you didn't pay for, walk out of a store or something, you get a criminal record. So yeah, for me, I mean, it's about creating a more productive and prosperous Florida. You know, again, we're economy driven state, and that's huge. You know, it drives everything, and these people, you know, don't necessarily want to work in the service industry. Service industry is a tough industry. You can make money, but, you know, if you're relegated to the service industry because you got a criminal record, you know what's in the service industry? A lot of drugs. Yeah, you know, it's like, okay, so I get like a marijuana, you know, drug offense. Okay, so like I can't get any job. So like, what do? I work in a kitchen and I fucking do drugs. You know,
Right.
like I'm like sitting there, I'm like, well, fuck. You know, look, I did everything under the sun in college.
Listen, the worst thing about working in the service industry is the only place left to work is in politics. Like
yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, I worked at a donut shop in college that, like, you know, I think the owner was it was like a drug front because they were making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Selling donuts. You know, they're putting a little extra sprinkled powder on the donut. And I worked there with my sister too. We worked the night shift.
Wow, that was a $200 bag of donuts. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, yeah. If I could do something like that, yeah, it would be, if it was going to be related to my field and what I do. Yeah, it'd be that diversionary mechanism. I mean, anything. You know, the most key word. It's one word. It's called prevention. Prevention. You know, let's keep people from going into the system to begin with. I'd love to work myself out of a job. It's never going to happen. I'd love to, you know, I'd love to be sitting on the couch, you know, not having to sit there and share the story of a young kid who came from an abusive family that, you know, didn't care, who was out selling drugs late at night because he wanted a pair of, you know, Jordans because his family can't buy it for him and he's never known anything less than being abused his entire life. You know, yeah, that'd be great, but it's not reality here. And prevention's key. It's why I love the agency that I work alongside the secretary. She's really focused on prevention, shifting dollars from deep end residential to prevention services to help kids.
Okay, so tell me about the Fourth Amendment in Florida.
Are we talking about the restoration of rights?
Yeah. Because we're talking about redemption and second chances and whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a clusterfuck, to say the least. Yeah, you know, it passed. I think that there's a lot of I think the legislature gets a bit of a bad rap on it, and they've thrown it, and they've said Republicans, they hate felons and minorities and stuff. So, in my experience, I have a lot of friends that were involved in the passage of it. Neil Foles is a good friend of mine. He's with the Restoration of Rights Coalition. And the way that the amendment was written and presented and testified in the Supreme Court was that paying your burden meant paying also your fines and fees.
Yeah, so explain that to people who don't know, because people don't realize outside of Florida that our justice system is intended to be self-funded.
Right. Fines, fees, I mean, restitution, court costs, and those have to be paid off because that's part of your sentence. Okay, it's part of your sentence. So, like, you know, and when I've talked to people that are on the other side of it, they kind of look at me. They're like, "Oh, well, you're like this bad guy doesn't want people to vote." I'm like, "I want people to vote. It's the most fundamental human right possible." I mean, people want to vote because, like, you look at the 3/5 compromise. You know, you look at what we did to minority populations. You look historically, even with women in voting. It's just me, Anthony, everything. I mean, you know, that one of the most that people have died to vote. To vote. I mean, it's the most fundamental thing possible. People that are Convicted felons want to vote. It humanizes them. It actually helps with their rehabilitation. You want somebody to be a normal citizen. Let them be a normal citizen. Let them vote. But so you got a guy like, and here's where I'm playing devil's advocate. Bernie Madoff. How many families, how many people's lives were ruined by Bernie Madoff? I'm talking the mid-level family. He swindled their life savings. He ran it in the ground. So their kid couldn't go to college. So their kids started doing this and did drugs, and the dad lost everything, and the mother and dad got divorced. I mean, how many families were ruined because of Bernie Madoff? Okay, like honestly, it's not. I probably you can't even fucking pie chart or even begin to you do a linear graph on the number of families that were ruined by the actions of this guy. Okay, so what, he serves his time in prison and he gets out and he hasn't paid any sort of restitution to these families. You should be able to go fucking vote. I'm sorry. Cry me a damn river. Give me the world's smallest violin. No. I mean, these families are still reeling. Yeah. And this guy should be able to go vote. These people could be living on the streets in a Howard Johnson, if they still exist, working day to day. And this guy should be able to go vote? No. Okay? No, period. And that's why the argument, there needed, it passed, and the way that it was written, I'm telling you, the crafters of it wrote it particularly ambiguously because they knew. And it was written that way. And I'll get flogged over this. I know it. But that's the way that it was written, and there needed to be an implementing bill. The legislature was passed with the implementing bill. It was all put upon a criminal justice chairman, Jamie Grant. It was unfairly. He was labeled as a Jim Crow. They called him Jim Crow Jamie. They unfairly labeled this guy all these different terms. All he was the damn chairman that was tasked with implementing this damn bill. Poor guy got the luck of the draw. You get a chairmanship, that's great. You're in leadership, but you got to implement this bill where everyone's sitting there hating you.
Good news, bad news, Jamie.
Yeah. Good news is you're in leadership. Bad news is you have to implement a bill where everyone's going to hate you.
By the way, for the folks at home and for Jessica, should know that Jamie's a good personal friend of mine. So this is, and of Christians as well, but of mine. And so I was there. I don't mind sharing part of the story. It was the last day session, wasn't it, where he had to give the final bill, and I was in his office that morning where he's like, all right, let me run my floor speech by you, and he did it. And of course, Jamie's a terrific speaker. He sounds like a preacher.
He'd be a good speaker.
And I was like, dude, that's fantastic. And he goes, yeah, I hear a but. And I go, the but is you're fucked anyway. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't matter what you're going to say. Like, every Democrat in the House is going to stand up and call you a racist and, blah, 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 and this and that, whatever. And he's like, and he just looked at me and he goes, yeah, I know. Like, that was it. I'm like, all right, dude. Gotta go do. And I literally fist bumped him. I've got a picture on my phone. I should have shared it of me and Jamie and Isaiah, because Isaiah was paging that day, hanging out in Jamie's office, going over his speech and whatever. And that's exactly what happened. And literally he did it, and he sat down, and I texted him, and I just went, I'm sitting up in the gallery illegally on my phone because I know Christian will take care of me if I get busted. And I'm like, bro, I'm proud of you. And it's like, I appreciate it. It needed to be done.
Yeah, Amendment 4 is difficult, but I'll tell you right now, though, that the heart behind it, and the people that got behind it, I think it shows a lot on, I'm not a huge fan of constitutional amendments just because
it skips the legislature.
And you pass a constitutional amendment and it's fucked up. You have to go back and pass another constitutional amendment to undo the mess that you've made. I'm a big fan of passing laws to the legislature. It's an easier process. You can come back and run an amendment the next year to fix it. It's a hell of a lot easier than getting a certain threshold of the vote. But the will of the people spoke. I mean, they passed this, and I am very empathetic to the individuals that this impacts. Again, I could have been one of those individuals. I've got friends that are those individuals, and some of them are they're genuinely good people that made bad mistakes. Are we the sum of our mistakes? Are we? No, we're not. You know, we are more than our mistakes, and I think that's what people, you know, you look at like criminal justice reform. You asked me earlier, Jacob, you know, why is it a hot topic? Because people realize that we're not the sum of our mistakes. You know, there's so much more to what people do, and you know, that was what drove this amendment home. They had a great ground game. They had great funding. They had incredible funding. I mean, you had celebrities, you know, John Legend, number of people, Tyler Perry, all these people pouring in money, and with, you know, with due respect, you know, the African American and minority community has been impacted the most by the justice system, obviously, and a lot of that stems back to policing type issues, so on and so forth, and laws that we've had on the books. I mean, let's not ever get it twisted. You know, Joe Biden passed the fucking crime bill that's been used to discriminate against minority populations, you know, for the last 30 years. And, you know, the biggest purveyor of that and enforcer of it was Kamala Harris. Again, we're not the sum of our mistakes. People can change. I am confident that they can change. And Jake will tell you, I'm not a huge Kamala Harris fan.
Neither am I. It's okay.
I'm not. But people can change.
Wait, is that what that picture of her in your bathroom means? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. On the little the tea cake. I'm not a huge fan, but I do believe that people can change, and that's the premise of my work, and I hope that she can change. The problem is, you know, maybe I'm hoping that she and President-elect Biden will work to retroactively pass sentencing reform.
Yeah,
because she put a lot of people away, and his laws put a lot of people away for drug offenses. And, you know, if you're truly about and truly sorry for what was passed, you'll retroactively pass legislation. You know, we passed a lot of criminal justice reform that's not retroactive. You know what? Make it retroactive. Get these people out. Show these people that, you know, they did their time. If you believe that you were wrong, why are they still sitting in the damn jail cell? You know, let them go back to their families. And I think when you look at criminal justice reform, that will be what defines Joe Biden's campaign, is how he deals with a retroactive application of any sort of criminal justice reform that he passes.
Yeah, how can he do that with any credibility? How can either of them do that with any credibility?
The first thing he's going to tackle is marijuana.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to legalize it, so I don't.
No, but what he could do is decriminalize
it. Yeah.
Decriminalize it, and then when you decrim it, you can decrim it and you can pass civil citations.
Right.
You know, make it, again, something that's low level where there's a diversionary mechanism in place so that people that are doing, you know, okay, well, you get caught out in public with the third civil citation, that's a misdemeanor offense. Well, if marijuana has been decrimmed and you're not supposed to be smoking it out of public, you get caught a third time, you know what? You might deserve a misdemeanor. I don't know.
Yeah.
Smoking in your fucking porch, like, you know, like I'm sorry, like, you know, who wants to get high out in Walgreens anyways? Like, you know, like, yeah, exactly. Like, you know, sit at home and kick back and order some Papa John's.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a bill right now for decrimming that passed in the House, but it's just it'll get throttled in the Senate. I mean, there's no chance in hell that it's going to pass. Well, actually, depending upon what happens with some races.
That's right. I was just going to say that. Like, it's depending on how Georgia goes.
I'm going to sit there. I'm going to backtrack and for a second. Yeah, I mean, depending on what happens, yes, but realistically, no. But yeah, I mean, you know, the thing is, there's a lot with interplay though on state and federal laws too. I mean, you know, that's the thing, is like, there's so much interplay on state and federal laws, you know, where stuff's federally outlawed and states have, you know, legalized it. And, you know, as the application, I mean, there's so many gray areas in that too. There's people that get screwed.
Ava, that's all on you, Ava. Let's go.
And where are you from in Georgia? Where are you from in Georgia, Ava?
Well, now we're going to get to delay.
Yeah. Okay, it's not a big deal.
No, but your point is well taken. No, Christian, your point though is Majority Leader Chuck Schumer passes that shit in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, the future. I think the first way to start taking away a nationwide reform for Biden would be to do something with marijuana, because there's such a shift in dichotomy in what marijuana once was. I mean, there was reefer madness, reefer madness, reefer madness. Oh my God, Cheech and Chong are bad. They're the devil. They're going to abduct your kids.
Yeah.
Stick a weed IV in their arm. And now we realize, like, look, that this right here is 10 times worse than marijuana. I don't see people.
Not only that, but here's the other part. I've got 2 vials of CBD oil in my bathroom. Like, I mean, just the irony of we've gone from, a pound of pot put you in prison for 10, 20 years to I've got oil in my bathroom.
Right.
It's not going to get me high, but
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's
this
shift.
A lot of medicinal properties. I mean, you look at what we've even done here with, Congressman Matt Gaetz is so right. I know I can see you just want to jump kick me in the throat right now. But he was one of the biggest supporters of the Charlotte's Web bill that passed the Charlotte's Web strain of medical marijuana here that's being used to treat kids with seizures.
Yeah.
Actually, I met one of the moms that worked with him behind it. I met her daughter too, who no longer has seizures. She takes the Charlotte's Web strain of the oil. And you look at, what's that's done in the medicinal properties of pot. And then you look at the, also, you got guys like former Senator Rob Bradley, who helped pioneer hemp. So like you look at like the economic properties of hemp, and what that's doing here in Florida. There's a hemp industry now, and so you start to take a look at like what was once viewed as this devil's lettuce, is now, this medicinal treatment that has an economic boon, that can also be taxed and provide tax dollars to early childhood intervention, treatment services, education, so on and so forth. So I think if Joe Biden, whether he's, I think, in my opinion, he should legalize pot, and then tax it and regulate it. And there should be regulated infrastructure, divert all those into the educational system and into prevention dollars that then trickle down to the states, so that states like Florida aren't 49th in treatment and mental health dollars.
Right.
That'd be a huge criminal justice reform. And then allowing for judicial discretion with judges.
I can't get this right. I feel so stupid.
What are you doing?
I don't know. I was trying to do like the Bill Gates, fist bump, but I'm too damn stupid to figure out how to do it. So I need to stop doing that.
And then, just, departure from mandatory minimums, is the next one. Like our judges are judges for a reason. They're smart. They know how to make decisions. They judge because they're judging on something. So like, why aren't we giving them judicial discretion to depart from these just rudimentary and just rigid sentencing structures? We have judges there for a reason, so allow them to use that judicial discretion to depart from mandatory minimums and make the right decisions on cases. I think that's the next thing in criminal justice reform. Shifting to treatment. Treatment dollars. Treating people as you're not just treating them, you're typically treating a household that's been impacted. Treatment's more than just one person, because like what you see with addiction is, I have a good friend of mine, and they have a sister who is a drug addict. So the mom is an addict. She's an addict to enabling the daughter, because she's there for the daughter no matter what. And when the daughter ODs and stuff like that, she's always there to bail her out or provide her with the money. If she needs something X, Y, and Z. So, in treatment, you have to treat an entire family, because typically there are members of the family that are complicit in feeding the addiction. Treatment's huge. Addiction, it just permeates so many different facets of a household, and it's sad. But there's more than just the addict. The addict can be the enablers, as well.
Well, brother, I love you. I'm appreciative of you and who you are and the fight that you're taking on. How can people connect with you and kind of find out more about what you're up to and what's going on and kind of support what you're doing?
Yeah, hold on. I think I'll have to look it up because I'm not that savvy. So if you want to follow me at Twitter, it's Chris_minor10 at Twitter, and then our association is FJJA Association. Just that's on Twitter at FJJA Association. My email, I'm happy to give it out. It's cminor@fjja.org. And, if you ever have any questions about what's going on, you want to see the legislative agenda, be added to our email list on some of the stuff that's going on in the state of Florida. Our website, we track every single bill that's criminal justice related here in the state of Florida. It actually live updates on our website. So like a lot of the bills that are going on here in Florida, I add them there. And, I'm also happy, if you're just interested in certain policy here in Florida, send me an email. Anyone's ever here in Florida and you want to visit a DJJ provider, let me know. I'll get you a tour. Go in, see some of the kids. The kids sell everything. They're the stars. The work they do is the star. That's what means it all. But no, I appreciate. Thanks for letting me come on tonight, Jacob and Jessica. It was nice to meet you finally.
Yeah, likewise.
And thanks for giving me a platform to kind of talk about what I do. It's been a journey that led me here, an unorthodox journey to say the least. And those are stories probably for another time. But I consider myself also blessed to have what I do and be where I'm at, to have good people in my corner. I don't necessarily always agree with Jacob politically, but I tell you what, we've always been able to set our political ideologies aside and unite on what matters the most, and that's friendship and family. So it was great being on here tonight. Thanks for everyone for your questions. I really enjoyed it. Some great questions, and hopefully I'll hop back on again.
Yeah.
We'll definitely do this again.
Yes.
Sure. I love you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Take care, everyone. Ava, take care. Have a good night.
Good night.
All right, brother. See ya. Yeah, that was fun.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, I'm glad we did that. I was, not that I don't mind talking to you the entire time, but I thought it would kind of add a little.
No, it added so much, and it was great.
Well, and I think the cool thing was, you got a sense of Christian's passion and like who he genuinely is and why this actually matters.
Yeah.
And I think what I wanted to do is, when there's so much cynicism right now in politics, and just what a bunch of dicks so many of our elected officials are.
Yeah, they are.
That, I wanted to show that some of us do this for a reason. Like, I sure as fuck didn't make any money doing this. It wasn't like I was in politics because I was cashing in and I was, an important person and whatever. I did it because I wanted to get people into office who could move the ball down the field.
Yeah.
Right. And I think too that people don't realize that there are other jobs in politics besides just schmucks like me running campaigns. Because we get,
it's and it's good to see people who are passionate about affecting positive change, in people's life, especially young people's lives.
Well, and the other part of it too is, and I get to go to Christian's receptions every year, which is really a fun thing. And he talked about bringing up the 3 kids every year. And they come up and they tell stories, and the room is filled with legislators because they do it during session. So for people who don't know, if you're not in Florida, so we actually have our original state capitol building. They left it up. It's actually still in place, and it's a museum now. You can go in and they've got the original.
So it's not that massive, like.
No, the ugly ass skyscraper is our current. Like, there's a funny story about that we should talk about sometime. There's actually a really funny story about that shitty ass stupid skyscraper.
I remember visiting it and grade. Yeah.
You have no idea that that's actually our state capitol, but it really is.
Yeah.
And you got the two wings on each side. One's the Senate, one's the House. I'm doing this and nobody can see me because I'm a dumbass and I can't figure out how to work the camera. But the little gray building in front of it is our original state capitol building. That was the first building from like 1840 or some bullshit.
Wow.
And so Christian does his reception in the old House chamber every year. And it does it during session. So legislators can come over. And what ends up happening is, I mean, he does his work inviting. I actually invite some legislators and people I have relationships with. The first lady's there, Secretary Marceller's there, people who are involved in the process. And there could be 200 people in the room. And these kids get up and of course they're scared shitless, right? Because they're kids they're normal kids.
Yeah.
And they're scared shitless. And they're getting up in front of all these important people and telling their stories. Yeah. And there's not been a year, I think we've done them 3 years now, where I have not left and gone, part of me feels inadequate because I've done less with my life.
Right. No, I get it.
Than kids have done with their lives.
Yeah.
But it's heartwarming. And you realize that there are people in politics, and this is why I wanted Christian on. I wanted people to see that there are people in politics who do good work. Mm-hmm. It's not about position or looking important. Yeah. There are 1,000 Christians out there. Yeah. There's 100 of them here in Tallahassee. And they work for all these associations and they're working on behalf of their clients and they're doing good work. They listen to lobbyists, they hear the term. Mm-hmm. And there's this automatic negative connotation.
Right.
It's like you and I talked about. That's why we had Mac on, as our big guest the very first week, because I had a friend of mine years and years ago who said to me, who was a lobbyist, who said, "You don't think the American Cancer Society has lobbyists?"
Of course they do.
Name your favorite cause, name your favorite issue, whatever. They have a lobbyist. Yeah. Running their agenda. And so that was a lot of fun. It was weird for me because I couldn't figure out like what stories I was allowed to tell or but no, it was fun. Christian's like family. He's like literally like he's like 15 years younger than me. So, he's like my little brother. Don't tell him I said that.
I won't.
But no, follow him on Twitter. He does a lot of good work. Talks a lot about criminal justice stuff, if that's an interest of yours. So that was cool.
It was.
So next Friday, we're going to have an issue out. I promise. Yeah, that's cool, Andrew. And genuinely, like, I would take a bullet for Christian, so I'm probably a little biased. We're gonna do, and we'll do the broadcast next Friday again, and my parents will be here, so that will be fun. I'll have to keep them out of the room. The bed behind me is where they sleep.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Sorry, Mom. I probably won't have them here in the bedroom while I do the broadcast, although that could be kind of fun.
Why not?
But they will be here. And then we obviously will take the following Friday off because that, of course, is Christmas. And then we should probably let the people know that we are probably going to start doing paid subscriptions. This might be a good time to let that kind of cat out of the bag. And so we've got some fun stuff in store for you guys.
Indeed.
Yes, Ava. I feel like I hid that away pretty well, but Ava, you always get me. So I think that's it for this week.
Yeah.
I don't have any addition unless anybody's got any questions or comments they want to throw in. And yes, Christian is the one who gave me the Woodford Reserve double oaked. So I felt like that was an appropriate week to break that out.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I don't drink it very often because I don't want to run out of it.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Because like I'm broke and I can't afford it. Christian's a rich lobbyist, so he can afford to buy nice bottles of brandy. He's gonna hate me for saying that.
Be nice.
All right, Ava. Thank you. Appreciate y'all.
Bye.
Appreciate you. Thanks for joining.
I appreciate you.
All right. Y'all have a good week. We'll see you next week.
Yes, indeed.